it's pure absurdism to be absurd.
Yeah.
And he does stupid things that the normie will think is stupid, but like he'll have a llama just randomly come out of the woods for pure absurdist like reason.
Welcome back to another episode of the Kevkast. In this episode, I have a conversation with my cousin and great friend, Dillon Gephart. We have been through a lot together, learned a lot together, and it's one of the main reasons why I thought I'd have him on. Dillon and I share a lot in common, and one of the things is the power of conversation. I felt as with every conversation I have with him, it's worth highlighting the importance and power of conversation, which is one of the main reasons why I've started this whole thing. We cover a lot of topics from the absurd to the serious, and they range in difficulty and complexity. I'm sure I'll have Dillon on again. Enjoy. So you and we have grown up in very similar circumstances, and I wanted to start by asking, what does America mean to you?
Now, um,
Could be in the
I think
past as well, or how it's changed.
yeah. Well, in the beginning, for most of my life growing up, I mean, America was like the my idea view of it was very patriotic, like your average conservative Christian youth. I mean, I grew up wanting to, for the longest time, I wanted to join the military. I was set on that for a really long time. I was very passionate about that because I felt obligated to serve my country. Um, I don't know. I was very patriotic, very nationalistic. But then as I grew up, I kind of got into politics more and started, especially in 2016 when all that was going down in the election. That's definitely when I really started getting into things. And I just started following things more and kind of saw what it was really all about. I'm not gonna like say now that I just view America as like this shithole country, like we're terrible. I still think we're probably the best country. I mean, I don't want to say the best country in the world, but we do have it pretty well. We're very blessed, and but I do think that now I definitely don't view it in the same patriotic sense. Like I wouldn't go fight for my country. I don't believe in that. I mean, growing up, you don't really know much about the Iraq War or our
Yeah.
invasion, like things like that. I mean, you kind of have to grow up and learn about those things, and that definitely reshaped my uh, idea about or my view of the United States or America. So,
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up the Iraq
and it's
War.
yeah, it's still it's honestly it's still like I haven't reached that yet. I still like really can't say how I view the United States. I think we're right now, especially, we're changing.
Yeah, definitely changing drastically. That being said, like you mentioned that we're still blessed, and I completely agree with you to live here. Like we're not growing up in Somalia or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that being said, do you think there's any like, and this could be subjective, but do you feel like there's any virtue in America in either the principles that it has now or in its founding, either or both?
Um, yeah, definitely both. I mean, we still are um we call ourselves like upholders of democracy in the world or in the West, but we definitely do that well over here. I just don't like when we try and do it over in other countries that aren't asking for it or don't necessarily need it. I mean, you look at the Middle East and you see what's going on there. It wasn't a good intervention. It should have never happened. It left them all for worse. But over here, I mean, where else in the world can you go and just out in the streets and scream whatever you want? Or like we still uphold a lot of things that I think. we take for granted, like freedom of speech and things like that. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's when you become entrenched in like political discourse, it's hard to keep those things in mind. So it makes me glad to hear you say that. And it is a very nice contradiction or distinction rather, the difference between domestic policy and foreign policy. Like we've got to have one of the worst track records when it comes to foreign policy. in one of my
yeah,
classes in one of my classes right now, we're writing this paper where we're supposed to be like recommending what LBJ does in Vietnam, and our teacher isn't allowing us to say do nothing. So I don't know what to do about it, but
oh my God, that's I guess it's what class is that for?
it's called Force and World Politics. So like it studies how politics and war are intertwined.
Hmm.
But yeah, he's like saying nothing is not a choice. Uh, all right, man. I don't know what to do then.
I do not know. I don't know what I'd do with that
Yeah,
assignment. It's tough.
it's tricky. Anyways, there's a side question here that's sort of underlying everything, and it's, do you think that there's any virtue at all in an objective sense? It's take your time. It's all
Do I think that there's any virtue at all in an objective sense?
like, would you say that being honest is objectively virtuous? Can that be something we can say for certain?
I think we'd have to say yes, because I mean, without going too much into deep thought about it, I mean, if you want people to be honest, you kind of have to view something like that as virtuous. And I much prefer people to be honest, and I much prefer myself to be honest. So I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about you? What are your thoughts on
Well, thanks for asking. It's hard. It's very hard because you kind of tie in virtue and morality together. To be to be virtuous is probably to be someone with a good morality and in that sort of way. I don't know how you could empirically find objective morality in anything. Um, it sounds terrible to say, but the Nazis thought they were doing something right. You know what I mean?
that?
Like, whereas nowadays we consider that as objectively immoral. But and I do too, which is why it's such a tricky question. And that's why I wanted to ask, because like I view that as an immoral thing, but the question remains, is that subjective because of what I've been taught and whatnot, or is it actually objective? And then you start to get into questions about God, I think. So do you think that if there were to be objective morality or virtue, there'd have to be a God, or could they exist without the existence of a God? This is it's all right if you don't have an answer. This is
No, I
very
mean that's a good question. I'm trying to find reason as to why a God would need to exist for that.
it's sort of like uh I've never say this guy's name right, but John Paul Sartre, he uses an analogy of like this paper cutter. You cut paper to give it some sort of shape or form, and you're not going to just cut a paper. Even if you were to cut a paper without the intention of making it into like a certain shape, you end up making it a certain way, and then it has its use. um what his argument is if you view humans as a piece of paper, there's no clear indication whatsoever that we have a paper cutter, so to speak. Like there's no clear intention for sort of a function of humanity.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to put it. Um, and I think that I agree with that. I mean, and I think I would lean more on the side of that there isn't. I mean, as I think this is something I'd really have to think about, but I'm more leaning on the side that there isn't any. I don't know if there is any objective morality.
Yeah.
I I I want to let me think of this. It's because like when you think about like veganism and like why do we eat meat? Like that is a crazy argument that we could get into. Like, but what I'm trying to get out of that is it's hard to debate with yourself um about the morality of that because you can say that the animals aren't consenting to any of that. Like you are trapping these animals and slaughtering them and ridding them of what is supposed to be their natural life and taking away their free will and using their meat and just throwing away the excess whatever you don't need. And I mean, most of us, I would say the majority of us are just okay with that and living with that. But that isn't necessarily a good thing. Like it really isn't.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, isn't a moral thing, I guess. But I mean, people will disagree, but I mean something like that, and um, there's something there's another analogy that I'm trying to think of, but I don't know how to phrase it in the right way.
It's all right. I think would it be fair to say what you're getting at is like you can you can sort of derive morality from what nature indicates.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's fair. I think I think it's such a tricky thing because then you have to ask yourself like, okay, is nature existing on its own or are there sort of these metaphysical forces making it go in a certain direction, like natural selection, for example? If you think about it like a computer program, God could have coded natural selection into this sort of into the save, and that's how he moves life along. But it's also tricky. I think,
I think that you can put God. There's so many ways to create God in your life. That's why there's so many religions. I mean, there's so many ways to go about it and justify why things are the way they are, especially through a God. Um, and I think that it's just if there were to be God, I, I think it would just be something beyond our understanding at this point because clearly, with how many religions there are over the world, we aren't really all on the same page about everything.
yeah,
I mean, some people will say that all the religions are praising the same God. Like I can go back to what I said before. Like there's so many ways to justify that there is a God. Like you can say anything, but I as of recent years, especially coming out of like the Christian loop, the evangelical Christian loop, I am definitely more on the side that there isn't.
fair enough.
Um, there isn't a specific reason why. It's just I don't know from what I've been learning about and other
Yeah,
religions, morality, things like that.
right. No, I think it's very for you and I, it's kind of obvious how like
Yeah.
this this sort of debate connects with us. Because I've been where you're at plenty of times, and then like I don't know, it seems as if I'm a bit more up in the air than you are, which I think is completely fine. Like you're not wrong or right, and I'm probably not wrong or right. Most likely, we'll have to die to find out. But um, No, like recently I've been more up in the air in terms of a God, and I would ascribe that God to more of what you're saying, something very, I don't know if minimal is the right word, but not the Christian God for sure.
Yeah,
Um, Probably not the Islamic God either. But you did mention how a lot of people do say that all religions are praising the same God. Do you, I guess since you've said that you don't necessarily believe in one, it'd be hard to answer this, but like, do you think there's any validity in that at all? Do you think those people are on to something?
yeah. I mean, it's a good thought because it's like the next step after like religion. Like you kind of try and figure out like, okay, so why is everybody like trying to pray to a God? Why are they all doing what they're doing?
Yeah.
Um, but I think that question always leads me to a dead end. I really don't see any reason why you believe that, especially when you start getting into the scriptures of each religion and what they really believe.
Yeah.
There's no way they're praising the same God. But it's still there. I mean, it's something that we'll never know, of course. But
Yeah. Fair enough.
um, yeah, there's some validity, but
Yeah, I for the most part I agree. It seems as if there's some stuff to play around with there at least. But sort of at this juncture, turning away from religion, kind of turning back to politics in America. We sort of hinted at it, but I think it's safe to say that you and I both believe there are criticisms of America. So I want to ask, and you know, feel free to say whatever you'd like. I want to ask, what do you think is the most relevant criticism of America?
the most relevant criticism.
Yeah,
Um,
and it could be foreign policy again.
um,
Could it be certain people, certain policies?
that's a very hard question
Yeah,
because there's a lot of things, but the most relevant,
maybe
I
relevant.
guess.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the most recent thing that I've heard about was Mitt Romney quitting because he's pulling the "I'm too old" thing. I think that's
Yeah,
pretty big right now. There's just too many old people in politics. There should be an age limit.
you think so?
Absolutely, there should be a cutoff. I mean, this is crazy. I'm not like this is like getting go like kind of going like Joe Rogan style, but like
It's
you look
okay.
at all the great leaders in history, they weren't like some 80-year-old guy. Like it was a 30 to 40-year-old person, man or woman. But that is like that's still able to connect with all sides of life. Like these 80-year-old, 70-year-old people, they are so and not even to mention that they're all gazillionaires or whatever. They're so incredibly out of touch with what's actually going on in the average American's life. It's ridiculous, and it shows in the lawmaking and what happens in Congress. So
Yeah,
that's something that I've thought about for that's been on my mind for a long time.
yeah. No, I think
The
I think I think that's a good one to pick out because it's sort of bipartisan. You know what I mean? Like, it's not um it's not specific to a Democratic position or a Republican position. That's a good one to pick out.
Yeah, I think most of our generation or just younger people in general, even millennials, would agree to that. It's like
Yeah,
what just happened to Chuck Schumer the other day. Like
yeah,
even Biden, like Biden's really old too. Like I'll even say that it's just
yeah. As much as I would much prefer him to stay in office than any other Republican or any Republican, it is frightening to think about the just the likelihood of him checking out is
yeah,
increasing. every day. And
Yeah, it's a huge risk. It's
yeah,
it's who knows what type of drugs they got. They've got them probably on like some alien drugs, keeping them
yeah,
going. So
for sure. There's definitely I mean that highlights a problem with healthcare, but anyways, uh
I just saw a thing yesterday. Something happened in Congress where one of the pharmaceutical companies was being questioned by I forget the guy's name, but some lady was being questioned about some drug that they just made, and it's going to be $500 capsule for leukemia patients,
oh wow.
and it comes in like bottles of 30. So it's like I think they said like close to $160,000 a year to pay for this leukemia pill. So I think
What in the world?
the state of the pharmaceutical industry is horrible at the moment.
Yeah,
But
no,
I think the Biden administration has done a good job in combating it as much as they can. But uh, some of the things that goes on in pharma with like insulin and diabetic patients, it's dystopian.
it very much is. And I didn't even hear about that leukemia thing, which is very relevant to my life now. There's someone in my life, I won't say who, but they have leukemia now, and it's becoming even more revealed to me how much of a problem we face here in this country. And then, you compare it to Europe, for example. It's not to say that they're perfect at all, but they're doing a lot better. Let's just say that. And there's constant arguments of saying, well, European healthcare in certain situations is free because of taxes. This is true, but if you look at the overall like expenditure per country, America is miles ahead. So these countries aren't spending as much money. But yeah, besides that tangent, no, that's very surprising. I have to look up that leukemia thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just that; it happens with other medicines as well. It's
Yeah. No, like you said, insulin costs way too much money, and this is something that people need to be taking every day, I believe. I'm not educated on diabetes, but pretty sure it's every day. Maybe even multiple times a day. And yeah, they've created this inelastic price for it, and it's not good. But I did want to ask, so you say that old people need to get out of politics. Do you have a do you think it's term limits, or do you think it's a actual cutoff where you have to leave? What might that solve, or how might you solve that,
um
President Dillon?
um term limits definitely should be a thing, but I do also think that there should be an age cutoff. I think that'd probably be somewhere. I think medical experts would probably be better off in making this decision, but I'm guessing that'd be somewhere around 60 to 65.
60 to 65. Wow. That is younger than I thought you might say.
Dude, I mean, I don't think that once you get past that age, you should just be completely like cut off from politics. But I think they should be act more as like a elder council
Yeah.
to the younger lawmakers. Like they should still be there putting in their input. They should still have power and be in those and be in Congress and those meetings, but they should not be able to make the biggest decisions, the big decisions that they are able to make right now, especially some of the state governors like Chuck Schumer. Like it's very scary.
Yeah. No, that's a decent idea. I the elder councils. I love that.
But I mean, but then like you have like you but that's the thing like with my thinking, like you do that and then you still end up with people like Lauren Bobart or like Matt Gates coming in and people who are just like crazy to I guess to me and you, but I guess to some other people they seem like competent normal people.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. Like with Bobert recently, like saying you want to protect children and then doing what she did in a movie theater with children. And it's I think what more so
One of like many scandals of her too. She's done. It's
yeah, it's I think this happens on both sides, maybe more so Republicans.
does
I'm not
happen on both sides. Yes, I will. Yeah, it does.
so like you said, to some they appear or yeah, they appear to be more competent. And that's important to remember. Because like you said, to us they don't. But I think what the overarching problem is just hypocrisy in politics. People are campaigning and saying certain things that they just don't truly align with. I think if we could somehow reorient to honesty, like if Bobert says, you know what, I'm a crass human being and I'm a sensual human being and this is what I like allow people to vote for her if that's what they want to see, represented in government. That I think could be a bit better.
I
I don't
think also what's affecting a lot of that, the lack of honesty is lobbying and people paying people to say what they're saying.
yeah.
I mean, you look at what some of these guys are saying, some of the tangents they go on, and it's the most disingenuine, no passion. Like it's robot. Like
Yeah.
they're just doing it to make money. And it's
Yeah.
clear. I mean, you can look at Nancy Pelosi. Look at what she's doing in the stock market. She's a bull, dude. And it's all from her insider knowledge. Like it's not a it's not a secret. I mean,
Right. And it's
like
not
fair
rock.
enough. Like you want to make money and stuff, but that shouldn't be. They should not be. Yeah, they shouldn't be affected as much as they are by lobbying and things like that.
It's so hard. I mean, that's sort of the reason, that's sort of the reason why I'm choosing not to go into politics now, even though my degree sort of, you know, pushes me in that direction. I I'm genuinely like I like to think that I have integrity and stuff, but like when I get in there and by any chance like the NRA offers me $1 million to vote for a certain thing, like how am I going to feel in that situation? I It's so strange. And how are you going to get people to pass laws against lobbying when there's going to be like lobbyists lobbying for the continual lobbying? It's so
Yeah,
tricky.
and I don't know how you get rid of that. I don't know how you get rid of people like George Santos who are not there for politics. They're there to make as much money as they can and get out.
Yeah,
It's terrible. I don't know what you can do to combat that, to get rid of that.
it's very tricky. Yeah, I don't have I'd have to look more into that, but sort of uh sort of shifting away from politics, it may creep up again, which is completely fine. But we've talked many times before about AI, and this I think is this is going to be a common theme on my podcast because as time goes on, AI will be more and more relevant. It'll be more and more a part of our daily life. So, what do you think about it? Because we've talked many times, and people on the left, I don't know how they feel about it generally. I see a lot of anti AI stuff. But yeah, just curious to know like what your general positions on it are.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm I use AI every single day of my life. That's not a joke. I There's no better teacher. There's nothing like there's not a person that's more understanding and able to teach other than AI in my like I it's not an exaggeration. Um I'm honestly I haven't gotten much into the moral debates of AI. There
Yeah,
it's definitely there and the ethics of it should be debated the entire step of the way without a doubt. But the expansion of AI is inevitable. It's too powerful. It's the holy grail. It's what's going to set us 100,000 years in the future. It's
yeah.
I don't think there isn't. I mean, if we can continue to build it and improve it the way we are, it definitely. it definitely will take over, and I
Yeah.
think it's inevitable.
You think do you think it'll take over in a good or positive, or a positive or a negative way, or perhaps both?
If it remains, if it remains in the right hands, yeah, um, it should end up in a very positive way. Um, but it gets tricky when it's not like open source and you have like somebody like Elon Musk making their own AI. I don't like that's when it gets weird for me. I don't, but I don't think it will end up that way. I think that the people that are making the AI now and who are on the frontier, who are actually really making it and doing all the real stuff, they're good people and they're not looking to take over the world with it, and they're much smarter than everybody else. So kind of like how like people viewed the founding fathers, like they know what they're doing to make sure that we're set up in the future. So
Yeah.
I have faith in that it'll be okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point, and good to remember, because there are a lot of people that are, myself included, there are a lot of people that are extremely uneducated when it comes to AI, and they are essentially just fear mongers when it comes to it. You know, there's a section of people that we know that like to say it's the Antichrist and things like this.
Yeah,
It's going to cause the end of the world. Um, it might cause the end of life as we currently know it, but not in the sense of Jesus coming back down. Because I think you've told me that you're a self-proclaimed accelerationist sometimes.
oh man, yeah.
Is AI.
That's the philosophy of Nick Land. Hey, yeah, that's a very niche internet person.
Yeah,
But yeah, I started getting into that, the idea of accelerationism and the idea of voting and going for whatever will push us as far, make us as radicalized, as progressive, push us all the way to the end to advance us as far as we can, um, as humans. And that idea, that philosophy is like you can apply that to everything, to technology, to politics, and it's definitely not something I believe in because it's definitely like a masochistic philosophy. Like you're definitely going to destroy a lot, but yeah, you'll progress. Yeah, but I mean,
no, yeah,
it's definitely check that out, Nick Land.
yeah. I maybe I didn't realize that you were being ironic when you told me that.
Yes. That's like what I bring up at the dinner table, at
Yeah,
the family dinner table, just to spice things up.
yeah. No, I love that, man. It is interesting to think about how people can truly believe that, how they can, because like when you look take a look at human history, what have we been trying to do this whole time? Progress. So why not take it a step further and just, at all costs keep going? It's interesting. But yeah, like you said,
Like yeah, like if you were an acceleration, like you would have voted for Trump because your justification for that would be like, if I vote for Trump, it's more likely for America, the American society or America as itself to collapse. So
yeah,
that's why you want it to happen. You want America's collapse to rebuild itself in a better way. So
yeah,
that's the accelerationist idea, to destroy life. It's kind of like a Thanos idea, like snap, kill out everybody and reset.
yeah.
To
Hmm.
It's a very
That's
villain idea.
Yeah. It's There's a lot of thoughts flooding to my head right now. But
That's
we talked
definitely like a
about,
future idea.
yeah, yeah. I might try and find like an actual accelerationist person somewhere and get them on here. Anyways, we've talked about how briefly, and if you don't have any thoughts about it, it's fine. But like we've talked about the coming possible culture war when it comes to AI and how it could possibly be. It's going to be thrown into cultural discourse for sure. I mean, it already has been, but at a more sort of radical way. Um, do you or I've talked to you about this, I should say. Do you foresee one um a culture war when it comes to AI? Like either rights attacking left because of the way they view AI and so forth. Do you see one?
Yeah. If anything, it'll be a small cultural war. But yes, it's inevitable, especially because what happens when you can go and ask AI, is God real?
Yeah.
And depending on which AI software you're using, um, or AI you're using, it might be a different question. And that's when we're gonna start getting into like the Christian conservative AI and the liberal progressive AI, and that's gonna be a very weird place to be in. And I can't really see what will happen when that starts to happen. But my guess is like I know Microsoft is a big investor. They're probably one of the bigger investors right now. Once bigger companies start developing their own AI, they're gonna start making they're gonna try and definitely create the God AI. Like there's no other AI that you should be asking questions except the Microsoft or Apple AI because that one is has the best people on it. It's the best whatever. That's what the future is going to be like. Big corporations using AI and trying to make it as godly as possible.
Yeah.
And that will be scary because I think I mean right now that'll be definitely be scary for anybody who's religious or conservative because those big corporations, as of right now, they're pretty progressive, pretty liberal um, corporations. So they're those ideas and things are going to be put into that AI, and of course, people are not going to be happy about that. So
Yeah.
that will be very interesting. But maybe it will wake some people up, though. It's really hard to say.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting take. Um, because AI will be more persuasive than a human being. And no, it's an interesting take, waking people up. Um,
And I don't think, and people won't have a choice but to love AI. They don't realize how much it's going to help them in everyday life. It can't be a boogeyman. It I can't see it ever being a boogeyman. Like I can't ever see it like it the worst that can happen is like a Terminator situation. But I don't see that happening.
yeah.
Not for for a long time.
Yeah. No, it's when you originally brought up like the liberal progressive atheist AI versus the conservative Christian AI, it's sort of coming back to like talking about objective truth and whatnot. Like this completely shatters objective truth, at least within like humanity. Like there could come a time where we agree on next to nothing, at least, you know, pockets of people to pockets of people. And that is an interesting thought. And I think we're about to find out a lot of things about ourselves and the universe when these sorts of things start to happen. I think, the philosophers that come about, whether it be in our lifetimes or probably the next generation, they're gonna have a lot of material on their hands, I think. Um, that's why I think there will be a culture war um soon enough. Um, because you're gonna have humans creating God for all intents and purposes. It's strange. And then you start to see the 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 claim about AI being the Antichrist, but that's that's probably
I mean, that's how it is. It's humans are creating it. We're creating life in a sense. We are creating a God, and it's something that we need. We have no choice. It is something that we will need. It's like the Industrial Revolution. Like people always say, like, oh, we should have never industrialized or think, but it's something that we at that time we viewed as a necessary need. Like, and now it very much is, where there's no going back. It's the same thing with AI. We are too deep and there's absolutely no going back.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say that in our current state, and especially with in as a capitalistic society, AI and mixed with that into the future, it won't look well for us. I don't think, I think corporations are only going to get bigger. They're only going to seize more control over things. Um, and especially with the help of AI, because once Microsoft and these guys start taking this AI and making it their own, and like you can only get it through them and by them, it will. That's very. I think that's very scary.
Yeah.
Not being able to just, I don't know, go on the internet and just use it whenever. I don't know. It's going to come into some weird niche monetization things, but that's very scary.
Yeah. AI micro DLC maybe. Or
It's not looking good.
no, it's interesting you bring up when it comes to capitalism and its relationship with AI. It definitely is easy to see sort of not to get Marxist, but it's uh it's easy to see like the consolidation of capital increase even more. Like um the 1% just gets even stronger and maybe even like less in number, which is crazy to think that it could even get to less people. That is a very scary proposition. But that being said, do you think if there's a way we end capitalism, or maybe like take a look at Nordic countries and sort of go with what they've got going on, you know, I don't want to misspeak, social democracy, where it's sort of like this social capitalism. It's not very American at all. Um, my question is, do you see a, a a chance of AI integrating into something like the Nordic model or socialism or communism?
I think the best outcome of AI in the future, um, the best and kind of most believable outcome will be that it that's our way of creating what was supposed to be the United Nations, kind of bringing everybody together on the same page. I think that's the most ideal outcome. I think that we can it's not so much capitalism that will be like downfall or our down will result in our downfall in the future. It's the fighting with other countries, I think, and that world tension rising, as especially I think AI will definitely increase world tension.
Fair.
Um, it- Hard to say why that will happen.
I mean,
Um,
I think there's already a little bit of evidence towards it as you see like tensions between us and China increase over Taiwan.
Taiwan,
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I think that our that's the best outcome for us, or that's the way we should be um navigate the future is an open friendship diplomacy towards everybody. And I think China is doing that, is setting a good example of that, to be honest with you. I'm a China. I love China. I love their foreign policy. I think it's very it's classic. It's beautiful foreign policy. I mean, And they are showing that they do want friendship. They don't want war. They're not. I mean, they still. I mean, I know they still have to be defensive in their own territory, but we're literally up their ass in Taiwan. We have them surrounded by missile bases like everywhere. We've taken over the entire world with military bases. So
Yeah,
they have every right to be defensive and kind of scared of us. But
I think so. I can agree to that. I I think there's a few things here. Um, I agree, and that's not a very you won't hear that in American discourse quite often, that China indeed has a right to be defensive.
oh, I know.
You won't hear that at all, and that's very, very valid and reasonable to bring up. But like, what's hard to know for people like you and I that aren't involved in like CIA or military operations is like how how willing is China really to invade Taiwan? And when it's sort of like another Cold War case where it's like, okay, if China does invade them, then in terms of where we stand on the global stage, we have like us Americans have a reasonable way to be fearful that China would overtake us. So that's one thing. I don't know if you want to speak on that at all.
Wait, yeah, so do you think I honestly with my knowledge and what I know, I have absolutely no fear of China taking us over.
Fair.
There's not a country that is touching us militaristically. We've got things on lock. And I think that if anything, we are going to be the ones to push the war in Taiwan. I think we are the ones who would escalate tensions. I've kind of been following China's politics and their foreign diplomacy. And I mean, I don't know his exact professional like title, but their biggest diplomat to the United States just went on like a talk show in Britain, and the British guy was like talking about like how why Britain is such like a big competitor with China, and the diplomat was pretty much like China doesn't even look at Britain like as a competitor at all because they're not, and they aren't. They don't produce anything. They don't do anything in for the world industry wise as big of a way as China does. And he pretty much little broed Britain.
Yeah.
And but after he did that, he said we are entirely open to friendship and we like want peace. That we have like pretty much no beef with anybody. And I think China's held that diplomatic stance since Bill Clinton. I mean, Bill Clinton had a pretty successful um uh he was pretty successful in improving relations in China. Um and I don't know why we moved away from that diplomatic stance of trying to be friends with China when now I mean Trump hurt things a lot. Um but I don't see any reason why we can't go back to that, especially because I think that China is so willing to. Um, but of course, there's money to be made in war. There's money to be made in selling things like that. So
Yeah.
that's why I think we have more of the incentive um to want war. We want war. We want things like that to happen because we make money off of it. It's how capitalism works. It's
Yeah. No, we are definitely like the leaders in terms of profiting off the military industrial complex. I just and again, this is something that like it's sort of a sorry, there was a gnat, kind of gross. It's sort of like in a way, it's sort of like um deconstructing your Christian faith. There's some similarities here when it comes to like the American propaganda machine. Because like even me, for example, like when you bring up China, people's alarm bells just start to go off. You know what I mean? Like people are, and just like back in the day with communism in the USSR, I think we're at a similar page. Um, but what I was gonna say is like there are there are some very valid critiques of China's foreign policy. Like I I think they're still being coercive. They're not going in and being violent, but they're still being coercive. So it's like I know that you're a country and you have to at some level act in your own self-interest. So I know that you're going to try to do things that help you, but I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
I agree. They especially in places like Africa where there's no question they're definitely acting in their own self-interest, but they are, I mean, you can compare that to how America has dealt with Africa and any Western country, and China's doing way better than any
Yeah,
of them, probably
yeah,
combined. I mean, look at France right now, what they're still doing in
yeah.
Africa. It's ridiculous,
No, that's
and
it's
they're
true.
suffering for it.
The French are causing instability right now and causing people to die. It's just, you know, uh, we'll bring up Joe Rogan again, but like I don't know if you're aware of the one guy, I'm forgetting his name, who went on the podcast and talked about how the cobalt mines,
I
and
think
how
so.
there's essentially slavery. If it's not slavery, it's like indentured servants. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, is it in terms of China, is it something you worry about as they progress their foreign policy and their goals?
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, it's workers' rights. China isn't the best at that. Uh, that's
Yeah,
there's no debate there.
yeah,
Um, but you can say this. I mean, you can say the same thing about America as well. I mean, look at how we deal with immigrant workers. I mean, we're probably not as bad as China, but it's something that happens everywhere, and yeah, it's definitely something that I do worry about right now, not even for the future.
yeah.
But that's something I really don't know much. I haven't really looked much into that in China specifically.
That's fair. I I was trying to while listening, I was trying to think about how we came on to China, and I honestly sort of forget. So, um,
Me too.
that's
I think
completely
we were talking about AI and how that would uh, go
oh
in the
yeah,
future with all the countries getting involved with AI and things like that.
yeah. No, it's that yeah, that thank you. That because that brings up a question. And it's, AI has already, as evidenced by the China tangent, has already increased global tensions. And as you say, like that's a worry. Um, and it does go back to the capitalism question. Do you think that these tensions are rising because the world is capitalist? Do you think it's because of this, or is it outside of it? Is it just source more so like the aspects of having countries in general?
I think it capitalism definitely has something to do with it. I mean, people are making decisions with a profit motive, so they're not always making the best decisions,
Yeah.
to put it simply. That's a terrible way to have your government set up. And that's how a lot of governments are set up across the world. And that's another thing that scares me as well in the future is like the reason why all the country like a big reason why all the countries in the entire world will want to be on the same page and want to like maybe form like one world government or something like that along those lines is because all of the rich people in all these countries from China, like it's like the workers in America have way more in common with the workers in China than they do with like the rich people in China. Just like how the rich people in China have way more in common with the rich people in America. And those rich people in China and in America, they're in control. They control politics and how we do things and what we want to do. And in the future, if we do decide to be more open and more friendly and try and get on that one government page, I think those rich people are gonna meet up and they're gonna be in control, and that's very scary. Um,
Yeah.
and the only way to not have that happen is to get rid of capitalism. So
Isn't it
it's very
isn't it
scary.
it's quite fascinating to me how like you have QAnon sorts of people who will say very similar things to what you just said, in the sense of like what they're fearful of is this one world government dominated by the ultra wealthy. I know that there's vast differences in between what you just said and QAnon. QAnon people believe that that's already the case, and shadow governments and adrenochrome, whatnot, like crazy
Hmm.
stuff. But there's the similarities and sort of the worries and concerns are there. It's fascinating how there's a lot of people that say these things, and this is me attacking people on the right. I'll say it flat out. They'll say these things and then still be a fan of capitalism. That is just so fascinating to me. When it's, I won't say clearly, because the world is not clear. It's that simple. It's clear that the world is not clear. Anyways, um, they'll say these things and then still, you know, still
Yeah,
defend capitalism. It's fascinating.
I
I
think it just has to do with said person's lack of knowledge on what capitalism really is and what it takes for a capitalist country to run and to
Yeah,
work. They really just don't know. Um, they know from what they've been told on in school and the news, but it takes a lot. You have to go and read alternative stuff that you won't read. Well, I mean, you'll read some of it in school, but you've got to, especially in the public school system, you've got to go and learn on your own. You've got to go read on your own. You've got to go learn these things on your own
yeah,
to form an opinion. And a lot of these people are okay with just having and forming an opinion based off of pure gut reason.
yeah,
And I think that's it's funny because you see a lot of that in the YouTube interviews, or like when people they get interviewed on the street. I know that's just getting the worst of the worst, but they'll be
yeah,
asked like the most basic question and they'll just like stand there and be like I don't know. I don't even know what you just asked. Like, why do you vote for Trump, or why do you feel this way about the NRA, or like
yeah,
they're there with like the MAGA hat on and all the merch, and they're just there to have fun. Like,
yeah. And that's okay at the end of the day. Like if someone can think what they want, that's, I don't think.
yeah, but just it's just that people don't realize much that how important it is to
Mhm.
be certain in what you believe in, to
Right.
really know, to build a strong foundation on what you believe in.
Yeah.
People are okay with not having any foundation at all in their life. And
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I wasn't trying to say otherwise, but I'm like, my mission, for example, is to somehow intertwine these two things, where it's like, because what I'm mostly afraid of is how the right views the left. The right views the left as these people that um want like one train of thought. They want everyone to be the same. And I don't think that's what the left wants at all. I think what the left wants is, obvious positions like abortion and whatnot. You could go on. But what I'm getting at is, my mission is to show others that, like, it's okay to believe in what you want, as long as you said, you can, you know, there's reasoning behind why you believe it, and you've dedicated time and energy to your positions. Because like you said, there are many people that have no foundation, and it happens on the left too. It just more so happens on the right. Um, if you get into political
I don't know.
psychology,
I'd honestly say it's both sides.
yeah,
There are some social justice warriors that
yeah,
just are cringe. They don't know
yeah,
why they're doing what they're
it's a
doing.
good, it's a
But
good, yeah. You get into political psychology, and it starts to make sense why people want this authoritative figure. They just want things to be easy for them. And that's a huge reason why Trump got elected. And you know my past, like, and I've mentioned it before. I was one of these people. I was a MAGA guy,
Yeah,
and
me as well. Right, yeah.
yeah, granted we were very young, and
Eighth grade, yeah.
yeah, but like my convictions were strong. I have no doubt about that. I believed in the MAGA train. Um, for any reason. It was bad. It was bad. Let's just say that. Um, but there was no foundation there, as is clearly shown now. Like the amount of work that I had to do to get rid of those beliefs was essentially nothing. I did work. I did work to get rid of those beliefs, but as like the MAGA beliefs got challenged, it was very easy to recognize how silly they were, at least for me. Um, I don't know if
Yeah,
that's how
that's
you feel.
pretty much all it took for me was just hearing a sensible person on the other side. I think that a lot of people on the right alienate themselves to listening to other people on the side, whereas me, I mean, I love that's what's so funny to me is like I would go home and just watch like liberals talk about liberal ideas and things like that just to like hate on it. I would hate watch essentially to like just try and pwn these people in my head, like and try and debate with them in my head, and then you end up stumbling across somebody who actually knows their shit. And oh wait, I can't go against that. When they start talking about like abortion and really getting into the morality and ethics of why they believe in what they believe, it's things that I've never crossed your brain that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that everyone cares for that stuff as well. I think that a lot of people, from what I've seen in my life, um, working and going to school, that some people just don't have a care in the world for that. They care more about other things.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know what there is to do about that. I think that social media has amplified that problem as well. Of course, like people even needing like people feeling like they need to pick a side and just stick with that
Yeah.
no matter what without knowing why.
No, that's a very big issue. You know, unpacking this sort of, there is a question which I internally struggle with. It's 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 what to do about people that A, either don't care about politics, or B, no, I'll just stick with A. I won't go there. What, like, how do you, and the founding fathers dealt with this too. That How do you deal with trying to provide a democracy, or at least a democratic republic, if you want to be specific? How do you deal with trying to implement these sorts of things when people don't care about politics, and yet like they're still going to vote because of some sort of group think, or especially now social media, that's just ultimate group think, and so they're going to vote, but there's no care for understanding the complications and the complexities and the importance at the end of the day. Like, do you have any thoughts on how you would deal with that? Because it's a very difficult question. I mean, do you just
I think Plato dealt with this question well.
you do.
Yeah. Because I mean, no. I mean, with democracy, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You have to let everybody vote. You have to make it as open to voting as possible. I don't think it should ever be restricted. I don't think that like you should have a certain IQ or like no. I think that that's my stance personally. I know that people, of course, like idiots are going to vote, but I think for the most part, generally, that being said, that there are the stupid heads out there that generally most people do want to, most uh, normal citizen who
Yeah.
contributes to society wants to know why they're voting and they want to learn and they really want to do well. They don't want to be an idiot, so to speak. So I don't think that's as big of a problem as people make it out to be.
No,
Um,
yeah.
with that being said, like it makes you go back and think, how did Trump get elected? But I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that's what's got to be like what resurrected this worry. I mean,
yeah, without a doubt.
And then like we've already mentioned, for some, Trump was the most logical answer. Oh, it's tricky. It's tricky.
But I do see why. I can That was a one-time thing, I think for sure. Um, he definitely won't get reelected.
You don't think so?
Absolutely not. I'm willing to bet my life on that. I mean, I just don't. If it happens, that's like that's a crazy.
Let me ask you this. If it happens, do you will your answer about letting everyone vote change? Because like you said at the beginning, you think Plato handled the question well, but he definitely did not want to let everyone vote.
No.
It's all right. It's
Because no, it wouldn't change. It can't change because that's how I feel. That's my view on things.
fair
Um,
enough.
I just don't think it will happen. And I pray if there is a God out there that it does not happen.
Yeah. No, yeah. I gotta ask the hard hitting questions, you know.
Yeah, man. But I mean, I see where Plato is coming from. I do think we should still take his ideas that I would say that not in the sense that not everybody can vote, but not everybody can be a politician. I think that we can go somewhere with that
Yeah.
idea.
No, I mean, and this comes up in the founding fathers as well. This is just very recent on my mind because of a class that I'm in, but like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton were worried about the the very real dangers that democracy can bring. As shown by Trump, you know, their worries were justified. It's interesting. Um,
Yeah, because a lot of change can happen over a short amount of time. Democracy.
yeah, yeah. You know, that being said, we mentioned Plato. Um, one of the things that we have a very common interest in is philosophy. Just wanted to ask, like, is there someone that you go to consistently, in terms of like just enjoying or learning from,
Um,
or a
I
couple?
always, yeah, I like probably a lesser known person. Um, I've talked to you about him before, Andrei Tarkovsky. Uh,
Andre, is he the
he
filmmaker?
yeah, he directed and made Stalker, The Mirror, those old Soviet films. He was a self-proclaimed philosopher, and I like listening to him more about his ideas of creativity and how we should view the world. I used to, and that's kind of what the direction I've gone into in philosophy. I'm less out of the how we should live and structure our lives part of philosophy and more into like how we should view things
Yeah.
philosophy. And that's definitely somebody I look up to a lot. Because I mean, art is a big part of my life. I soak up art like a sponge. Like I love it. And he's one of my favorite artists and to be a philosopher as well. He really um, explains and puts well into words um, how he feels and how he views things. And it's very hard to explain and summarize, but he's definitely somebody I go to a lot.
Yeah. I apologize for putting off the stalker for so long. I mm, just I'll get to it. I promise. I
No. It's dude, it's a very philosophical, very heavy movie. So
Yeah, no, it's interesting you bring up like viewing creativity. Because this is something I would like to dive into in the future. Do you, just like any quick thoughts on how he views creativity? I'd be interested to know. It doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch. I mean, don't worry about like
let me talk about that. I can really talk. I can really talk about this. Uh, another big inspiration, I guess. Another big like role model for me is David Lynch.
Mm.
He he hits it right on the creative bone. He knows like, and they both of them, what's interesting about both of them is they take a lot of inspiration from dreams. And I think that's it's very interesting, of course. And the idea of dreams itself, like it's like arguably the most creative thing possible. It's like your brain, like sparks of your brain happening in the night, creating worlds like that were outside of like your dream,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're being like dreaming, like you would have never thought of or never. And in those dreams, like you're feeling things too, like maybe you're feeling nostalgia, you're but and like that's pure art, like that those dreams that you're having. And those guys both take a lot of inspiration from their own dreams and implement that into their films and their movies. And something like a dream is so incredibly human, and like it definitely,
I
it's almost nostalgic in a way. It's something that we can all feel nostalgia for.
I'm the gears in my head are starting to turn a little bit because, well, Dostoevsky's very into dreams as well. Probably for different reasons, but I thought about that because I'm reading him right now. But what I'm saying is could it perhaps be that they take such inspiration from dreams and the creative process because the dreams are unobstructed of like any outside influence. It's all, and like you said, it's human. No, that's very interesting. It's creativity from from being itself.
And yeah,
Not to sound like
exactly.
it, but that's the truth.
Exactly. And that's something that David Lynch, that's something that he's very passionate for, is that he wants, when his movies are made, he doesn't want any executive, any top like head studio guy to touch it.
Yeah.
Like, and if you watch a lot of his movies and like or Twin Peaks, he'll just do like it's pure absurdism to be absurd.
Yeah.
And he does stupid things that people, that the normie will think is stupid, but like he'll have a llama just randomly come out of the woods for pure absurdist like reasons, just for the art effect, whatever. And or he'll have like some person with a crazy weird backstory. Like I don't know. It's hard to put into words what he does, but
Yeah.
it creates a dream on film. He is putting his dream vision on film. And what that is, it's not something that can be taken like so intentionally, or so like I don't know, like I can't, it's hard to put in words, but he'll like put like a notebook on the screen and like try and make you think that it's like a bus or something else. Like
Yeah.
that's his idea. That's what he wants to do. He wants to put you somewhere else while giving you like it's really hard to put into words what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
no.
say.
I mean, I think there's a part of this sort of creation where it's like it's almost impossible to analyze. Like you were when you were talking about that, it's hard not to think about I Am the Walrus by the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that sounds like a that feels like a dream put into music form, at least for me. I mean, a lot of their psychedelic music does. And that's talking about absurdism relating to existentialism. Like I'm a John Lennon stan, but he was into Kierkegaard, man. Like it's not a coincidence that he makes I Am the Walrus in my eyes. So no, that's very fascinating. The last question I wanted to ask is if what are some things or one thing you feel we may disagree on?
Um, sure we disagree on a few things, but
Yeah. The reason I bring this up is because, you know, there's no point in getting into it, but you and I are we've we've grown up together and we have similar views now. So, and I'm just curious because, I don't I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just this is kind of just for me, honestly. I don't know.
No, it's cool. I think we probably disagree somewhere on the lines of religion.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're more for it from what I'm getting than I am. I am very communist and very Stalinist when it comes
Yeah.
to religion.
No, yeah, it's it's interesting because like I guess it's my lack of knowledge, but it's like for me, it's not hard to reconcile communism and some sort of spirituality. Not necessarily like anything like Christianity, but like some sort of like if you were a Buddhist, I don't see how you couldn't be a communist. I don't know. If I'm saying something that's very offensive, I apologize, but like
Probably, but
yeah, probably. No, yeah, you're right. We definitely do agree. There's this weird thing lately.
but what do you think we disagree on?
Um, hmm, it's a great question. I know we differ when it comes to like music taste, but that's not like a disagreement. That's more of just a like a taste. And then, that's interesting because we used to have very similar music taste. Probably because we spent so much time together.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we kind of like I think anybody like we kind of went through started our music phase at the same time, and everybody who like kind of gets into music goes through that, like where they listen to all the basic, like
you
of
think
course
so?
you're gonna listen to the Beatles and things like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
I've definitely gone into a more niche line.
yeah.
I've always been into the experimental stuff that doesn't I've never heard before.
See, I think we have some similarities still, although it's different artists. Like
Yeah,
I'm into experimental rap right now and have been for a while. Um, some people say it's cringe, the type of rap that I like, but I don't care.
dude, there I listen to Blade. You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah. See, that's like the cutting edge of experimentation. But anyways, we're getting sidetracked here. I don't know. The religious point is probably the major one. I think we do disagree about the age in terms of politicians. The reason I say this is it's similar to other things where like where do you draw the line in terms of age? Because like him or hate him, Trump is clearly more mentally stable than people his age. Let's just say that. Like he's delusional and
Yeah,
he's got,
yeah, I agree.
you know what I mean? Like he's still
I
an
think it just
enterprising man. Let's say that.
I even at my work, I work at a golf course and I'm seeing old people all the time. And it's so weird because like one guy will be 80 years old and look like a fit like he's 60. And then
Yeah.
you'll have another 80-year-old who's like hunchbacked and look like he's about to croak
Yeah.
in like a day. And I
Yeah.
just I don't know what you do with that. I am probably a bit harsh when it comes to the cutoff at 65, but
That was
I just
very
think
surprising.
I've always thought that older people should just act more as like an elder. Like they don't need to be making the most upfront decisions. I think that's how it's always been in societies, and I've always looked at things like that in a very historical way.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's just for me, it's like if you again, it's the line thing, but it's also a bit philosophical when it's like that sort of indicates an equal sort of situation where older people are less than younger. And I get it, but like if your implementation is good, like the council of elders or whatever it may be, because it still respects them as we've all been taught to do. Um, so no, I like that. I've never heard that before actually. But I don't know, the more I think about it, the more we may just agree. You might have persuaded me. Um,
It was the Outer Council. It
yeah,
just
no,
sounds too cool.
it sounds great. It sounds a lot better than what we have going on now. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Thanks for putting yourself out there, man. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, if you ever want to come back on,
Definitely.
let me know.
I think I've got to come up with some things to talk about. Maybe we can get into more like juicier, more things that we disagree on. Because
Yeah,
I
no,
feel like there's a lot.
dude, a debate between you and I would be crazy, I think. But yeah, thank you so much.
Of
And
course,
goodbye, everyone.
peace and love.
Peace and love.